Did you know the Inca almost weaponized llamas and trained cougars for battle? You're about to discover the most bizarre and hilarious military tactics of the Inca Empire, from taunting their enemies with inscribed rocks to bringing mummies to watch the fight. Most people think of the Inca as master builders, but their approach to warfare was truly next level, and frankly, a little weird. Stick around to find out which of these strange strategies actually worked, and why their most effective weapon was one you could make in your backyard. So how do you fight an enemy who shows up with giant, terrifying war dogs you've never seen before? For the Inca, the answer was simple: fight fire with fire, or in this case, fight dogs with big cats. When the Spanish conquistadors unleashed their mastiffs, the Inca tried to counter them by training their own native predators, Cougars. You can just imagine an Inca warrior trying to convince a very unimpressed cougar to charge into battle, as you might guess. This attack cat program probably wasn't a roaring success. But what if your enemy had weapons that could shatter your sword from a distance? Well, the Inca had a surprisingly powerful answer for that. Their best ranged weapon was the warraker, a simple sling that could launch stones with the force of a musket ball. These weren't just random rocks either. Archaeologists have found sling stones from similar ancient cultures with messages carved into them. Imagine being in the heat of battle and getting beamed by a rock that literally says catch or ouch on it. It's the ultimate ancient trash talk. But the Inca's psychological games didn't stop there. What if an entire army just stared at you in silence? Before a battle, the massive Inca army, sometimes over 100,000 strong, would approach their enemy in complete, eerie silence. The goal was to build crippling tension and fear. Then, right at the last moment, they would erupt in a deafening explosion of noise shouts, drums, and blasts from conch shell horns to completely overwhelm and disorient their foes. Sometimes, the sheer sight and sound of this massive force was enough to make their opponents surrender without a single stone being thrown. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare. But perhaps the strangest battlefield attendees weren't even alive. The Inca deeply revered their ancestors, mummifying their emperors and treating them as living entities. This meant bringing the mummies to major events, including military parades and strategic planning sessions. Picture this: Inca generals are debating troop movements, while the mummified remains of their greatest emperor, Pachacuti, watches from his litter on the sidelines. It gives a whole new meaning to having your ancestors looking over your shoulder. And speaking of unusual battlefield companions, what about their most famous animal, the llama? While the Spanish had their powerful war horses, the Inca had, well, llamas. These fluffy animals are great for carrying supplies, but you can't ride them into battle. So, while the conquistadors charged on horseback, the Inca army was supported by what were essentially very fuzzy, unrideable pack mules.